If you think back to lesson 1-2, we talked about adding and subtracting polynomials. In this video, we're going to add one more operation into our repertoire of skills, and that's going to be multiplying polynomials. So we're going to start very simple, and we're going to kind of work our way up through the varying complexity of multiplying polynomials. We're going to start out with the very basic multiplication, and that's going to be a monomial times a monomial. That just means we're going to do one term times another expression that has just one term. So if you look at example number 1, we're asked to simplify 5x squared times negative 2x cubed. Each of these pieces on its own is a monomial because it has one piece to it. That's where we get the term monomial. Binomial is going to mean 2, and polynomial is going to mean more than 2. So we're taking 5x squared, that's one monomial, times negative 2x cubed. And we're going to use our exponent rules that we talked about in the last video to help us out a little bit. So we're going to start with the easy part, and we're going to just multiply together the coefficients. Remember, the coefficients are the numbers that are in front of the variables. We're going to multiply those together, so 5 times negative 2, and that's going to give me negative 10. Now, if you remember back to our exponent video, and I'm going to flip back to that for just a second, when we were multiplying things that had the same base, we added the exponents together. We had the example 5 to the second times 5 to the fourth. We add the 2 and the 4 together and got 6. So we're going to go back to this slide, and we're going to do that with this process. So we have x squared times x to the third. So we're going to add those exponents. 2 plus 3 is, of course, 5. So that's going to give us x to the fifth. And that's our answer. Unfortunately, they won't all be this easy. We're going to have different levels of complexity, as I mentioned. So the next thing we're going to look at is multiplying a monomial times a multi-term polynomial. So we're going to take one piece that's just one term long and multiply it by something that's a little bit longer. So we're going to do example 2, simplify negative 3x times the quantity 4x squared minus x plus 10. And what we need to do is to distribute that negative 3x through the parentheses. So we're going to distribute negative 3x times 4x squared. Again, we're going to multiply the coefficients, so negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. And I'm going to pause the video for just a second as my cat's trying to photobomb the video. And I'm back. Alright, so just to recap what we were doing, we were distributing the negative 3x through the parentheses. So we multiply first the negative 3x times the 4x squared. Negative 3 times 4 gives us negative 12, and then we're going to add the exponents. Remember, we've talked about this several times, that if there is no exponent attached to a number, it's just going to be an invisible 1. So I'm going to add 1 plus 2, which is going to give me x to the third power. I'm going to then go ahead and take that negative 3x, and I'm going to distribute it through to the next piece, the negative x. Now, make sure you pay attention to your signs. We have a negative there. So that's going to be like we're multiplying negative 3 times a negative 1. That 1's hiding in there. So negative 3 times negative 1 is going to give me a positive 3. And then I'm going to add the exponents. Again, this x does not have an exponent listed, so I'm going to put the invisible 1 there. So 1 plus 1 is 2, so that's going to give me 3x squared. And then finally, I have one more step. I'm going to distribute that negative 3x to the 10. So negative 3 times 10 is going to give me a negative 30. Now you notice this piece doesn't have an x attached to it, so we don't really have anything to multiply that x to the first with. But if you really want to think about it, that's like it's really listing out 10 times x to the 0. Because remember, anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. So 10 times 1, of course, is the 10. So it's really like we're adding a 0 on the exponent there. But really, you don't need to go through that process every time. You can just know that if one term has an x and the other doesn't, that x is going to be carried over and not change. So you do want to check to make sure that you don't have any other like terms as a result of your multiplication. On these, we each have an x, but they all have different exponents, so we don't have any like terms, so we have our answer. Alright, you have 4 you-try problems to go ahead and attempt. Make sure that you give those a try, check your answers on the webpage, and ask your teacher if you have any questions. Alright, that wraps up for this video.